Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a fascinating source from the YouTube channel Bible Grace. And honestly, it radically shifts how we view mental health, burnout, and recovery. Whether you come from a faith background or not, this source takes an ancient story you might think you know, or maybe you've literally never heard of it, and just completely flips the script on what it means to hit rock bottom. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. I have had enough, Lord, take my life. I mean, wow. Just listen to how jarring, how shockingly raw that statement is. This isn't some modern diary entry, right? It's a centuries-old prayer from a man chosen by God who is lying completely broken under a tree. The source points out that this is one verse most people kind of gloss over because, well, it's almost too honest. It forces us to confront a reality that makes a lot of people incredibly uncomfortable, the reality of deep, paralyzing despair.
Part 1, The Prophet Who Gave Up, the Unlikely Victim of Burnout.
So to really understand why him giving up is so groundbreaking, we have to know who Elijah actually was. He wasn't some faithless drifter, you know? He was a prophet who had literally just experienced the ultimate mountaintop victory. He had just publicly called down fire from heaven and won his generation's absolute greatest spiritual battle. On paper, he was at the peak of his career. He should have been taking a victory lap. But instead of celebrating, what does he do? He runs into the desert, completely alone, collapses, and asks for it all to end. And why this matters to you and me is summed up perfectly in this one simple truth. Depression doesn't check your resume. As our source so beautifully articulates, nothing catastrophic had just happened to Elijah. Actually, scratch that. He had just won. But depression just doesn't care about your wins. It doesn't care how strong you are, how much you've achieved, or how perfectly you've performed. It can hit absolutely anyone. And realizing that is the crucial first step to removing the immense shame that so often comes with burnout.
Part 2, God's surprising first response, defying religious expectations.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is how God actually responds. When someone hits rock bottom, especially a spiritual leader, we usually have certain assumptions about what should happen next, right? A strict religious mindset expects a harsh sermon, a severe correction, maybe a disappointed headshake, or that classic demand to just pray harder. But what actually happens in the text completely breaks every single rule about how we think faith and mental health are supposed to work. Instead of a lecture, an angel appears with a gentle touch, provides warm food, and just lets him sleep. No lecture, no rebuke. No demands to have more faith, just the immediate, practical necessities of human care.
So the really crucial point is embedded right in this phrase, get up and eat for the journey is too great for you. The source highlights an incredible paradigm shift happening right here. God fixed Elijah's body before he ever tried to fix his feelings. Think about that for a second. The creator of the universe looked at his most powerful prophet and essentially said, hey, your body needs fuel right now. Because sometimes what we label as a profound spiritual crisis or an inescapable depression is, at least in part, just a human body that is completely run out of gas.
Part 3, The Journey to the Cave, Finding the Absence in the Chaos. You see, human healing isn't some magical overnight process. Elijah wasn't suddenly entirely cured even after eating and resting twice. He was still struggling, and he was still terrified. So he begins this massive journey, deeper into isolation, traveling for 40 days. Just let that number sink in for a moment. 40 days wandering through the harsh wilderness. This massive span of time really represents the sheer exhaustion, the grueling length, and the stubborn persistence of his dark season. Healing takes time. The journey through burnout is incredibly long, and Elijah had to walk every single day of it to finally reach a place where he could stop running and simply hide in a mountain cave. Let's see how this builds, because once he's in that cave, the environment outside goes absolutely wild. Our source details this crazy sequence of spectacular, dramatic events. First, a wind so powerful it literally splits the mountains. Then a massive earthquake shaking the very ground. Then a roaring, consuming fire. You would totally expect a powerful God to speak through these chaotic, overwhelming forces, right? But the text explicitly notes that God was absent from the wind, absent from the earthquake, and completely absent from the fire.
Part 4, The Still Small Voice, a Gentle Invitation.
After all that chaos had passed, after the noise completely died down, what followed was a still, small voice, a gentle whisper. God didn't shout over the storm in Elijah's mind. He waited for the quiet. He met Elijah not with overwhelming force, but with a gentle invitation that required Elijah to lean in and listen closely.
And when that whisper finally speaks, it asks this incredibly simple question: what are you doing here, Elijah? Notice what isn't there. It's not a harsh rebuke. It doesn't say, why are you such a massive disappointment? It doesn't demand that he pull himself together. Our source emphasizes that this question created a completely safe space for Elijah to finally speak his deepest fears out loud without any fear of judgment whatsoever.
Part 5, The Lies Depression Tells You, Dismantling the Darkness.
And this brilliantly illustrates how, once that safe space was created, the real healing could begin. When Elijah finally spoke, he poured out his exhaustion, his fear, and his deep belief that none of his efforts mattered anymore. The source boils the struggle down to two fundamental lies that depression always tells us. First, you are completely alone. Second, this will never end. Elijah believed both of these with every fiber of his being. But God didn't use lightning bolts to fix him. Instead, he systematically dismantled those massive lies with the simplest of antidotes: bread to restore the body, rest to restore the mind, a whisper to restore the soul, and a friend, a companion for the road ahead, to prove for sure that he wasn't alone.
Which leads us to the ultimate message of this entire story. God meets you exactly where you are, not where religion says you should be, not where you think you need to perform to. You don't have to fix yourself to earn help. Whether you're in a dark room, under a tree, or hiding out in a cave, help meets you exactly as you are, without an ounce of shame. The creator of our source material ended their message with a really beautiful call to action that I just have to share with you. They asked their viewers to drop the word whisper in the comments. The idea is that somewhere down the line, someone in their absolute darkest moment will scroll through those comments, see that word repeated over and over by total strangers, and realize that they are fundamentally not alone.
And that leaves us with one final thought to ponder today. In a world full of mountain-splitting winds, earthquakes, and consuming fires, can you get quiet enough to hear the whisper? Healing so often starts in the stillness. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this profound explainer today. Keep learning, keep seeking the quiet, and I will see you next time.